Hello, everyone. Welcome back into the Prospero.ai stock market live streams. We are seeing the first real bullish day in the markets in some time now. The markets are green across the board. The QQQ is up over 2%. The SPY is up over 1.5%. And the Dow Jones is up over 1.25% today. The Russell is actually the leader, up 2.25%. So green, very green across the board. And I did just look at the SPY net option sentiment in Prospero, and it is off the 0 mark. Let's see where it is exactly at right now at the beginning of our stream today. Welcome everybody in here. Hopefully you had a great weekend. Okay, SPY is now at 14 net option sentiment, and it has been a while, everyone. It was at 0 for almost, I feel like, a month now, just unchanged. So good to see that rising, even if it still is at a lower level than what would normally be considered bullish. And the QQQ, as we start the stream today, is at 41. So the markets are in a better mood as we start this new week. Maybe on some comments that were made on Friday and then over the weekend about less severe tariffs possibly starting on April 2nd, but a lot of other stories we want to cover as well. As always in the beginning, we'll cover a full market encapsulation of what we're seeing today, what we're seeing in the signals, what is driving today's bullish move. We're going to talk about insider selling of Mag 7 stocks and how NVIDIA is looking maybe the most bullish out of all of the Mag 7 based on this metric alone. A lot of insiders are selling at this current time, which is a concerning thing. Then if you're a Sunday newsletter reader, you probably saw our little thing about the home building stocks and how they could possibly be a signal if this bounce we're seeing. Hello, George. Welcome to the stream today. Is legitimate or not going forward. So we'll cover the home building stocks and how we're looking at them. Then we have a Boeing contract to get to as well, a big one worth $20 billion and upwards of $100 billion over the course of its lifetime. And the Prospero signals could have possibly seen it first. So that's going to be interesting. Then, if this rally is real, will a lot of the stocks that worked earlier in this year and the end of last year be the ones that lead us out? And we were calling these stocks the Trump stocks. And I'm thinking Palantir, Coinbase, Tesla. So we'll get into all of those. We have started to get early earnings. So FedEx and Nike reported last week, and both stocks dropped on earnings. So is that an early warning sign for the rest of earnings season as it's set to kick off in just a couple weeks? Or are those specific to those companies and not to be worried about for the overall markets? Then we have two very opposite stories. So firstly, 23andMe filing for bankruptcy just after IPOing under 5 years ago. And on the other hand, we have StubHub filing to IPO under the ticker STUB, S-T-U-B. So we'll get into both of those companies. Then a company that has looked very bullishly in our signals for a long time now, Eli Lilly, with some news. Them and Novo Nordisk are expected to release results on a weight loss pill, which currently only a shot is available. So could be a bullish update for them and overall adoption of those products that they have. And then last but not least, if we have time at the end of the stream today before turning it over to the model portfolio update at the end, we will get into an AI art story. But I don't know what happened. We just lost George, everyone. Hopefully he joins us back in here in just a moment. He's back already. Let's see. Do we have you, George? I see him on my end. Maybe he's frozen. Let's take a look at Bitcoin also. Do we got you, George?
I don't know if you can hear me.
I can hear you, but your camera's frozen now on my end, at least.
Yeah, let's get that fixed.
All right, everyone, hang tight for just a moment. So we have Bitcoin also up today with the markets. It is just under 88,000 currently, up 1.6% on the day. So moving very similarly to the overall market move that we've seen today. Let's see if any of the Magnificent Seven stocks are red on the day, or are we all green? Tesla, I believe, is up the most, up 9%, now over $270. Pretty crazy move for Tesla. Amazon has reclaimed the 200 level. They're up almost 3% on the day. Meta, a usual favorite in our signals, is up over 3% today and crossed back over the 600 level. So a lot of stocks looking bullish. Let's see how NVIDIA is doing. NVIDIA is up over 3% as well and over 120. So all of these companies making runs higher today. AMD is actually up a lot, which I'm sure a lot of AMD shareholders will rejoice in. AMD is one of those stocks that has just not worked for a long time now. So good to see that there. They're up 6% on the day, back over $112. And they were just under 100 not too long ago. So I'm sure a lot of AMD shareholders, if you're hanging in there, are very happy today to see that move for that stock. But yeah, we'll just wait. We'll see if George can get back in here, and we'll get into our topics. As always, if you have any comments, concerns, stock-specific questions, feel free to comment them in our chat. We're happy to address any of your concerns or questions. So just let us know, and we'll get into them. But without further ado, we will get into our topics in a moment here. I was actually looking before our stream, looking at the fear and greed index, and even though the markets are green across the board, it is still quite fearful in the overall market. So maybe investors aren't buying this rally just yet, or the lasting nature that this rally can have. The VIX actually is at 18 too, down 5% today. Really dropping hard right now, but it's still above the levels it was at just in mid and early February. So it hasn't quite gone all the way back down to the lower levels it was sitting at. How you guys feeling after the weekend of Green Rally? We got George back.
I thought I worked out. I actually did a lot of camera fixing. I thought I had it all, but some slight.
Well, it's
I'm just
looking.
sending this out.
Yeah, no problem. It's looking very good now, just kind of like the markets today. And George, I was mentioning before you got in here, I think, the SPY net option sentiment is finally off of that dreaded zero flat line that it's been at for so long. Let's see where it's at actually at this moment. It is up to 13. So although it's not necessarily a bullish level, it's got to be at least a little bullish to see it finally move off that zero flat line, right?
Yeah, I mean it's encouraging. I mean, we'll talk about this more. Yeah, I'm still concerned about some of like the tariffs on April 2nd, and like obviously there's like so much apprehension in the market overall. But I think this is encouraging. I mean, it might be encouraging for just like, 1 week of performance. Or maybe people think that the tariffs are, baked in. I have a hard time believing people think that the tariffs are baked into the prices, mostly because we don't know exactly what they're going to be. There was a whole new, tariff today announced on anybody that takes oil from Venezuela. So yeah, I think there's still a lot to figure out. But very, encouraging. I'd say it's encouraging that there's some more resilience in the market than we might have expected. People are taking their hedges off, or their aggressive hedges off on SPY. So we'll see. I mean, if SPY continues upward, I have a lot more faith in what's going on in like the medium term, but we'll have to see.
So I feel like maybe we're in this little Goldilocks period where we got the Fed out of the way last week. We don't have any earnings of really like any of the big companies starting until like mid and late April. Um, and the April 2nd tariffs aren't in effect. So until that time, it seems like the markets are just kind of gonna in a waiting game here. And we did get some comments on Friday and then over the weekend about possibly the severity of the tariffs being slightly less. Do you think that's the main reason that the market opened up so much today?
Yeah. I mean, um I think that it's still a pretty big uh unknown, but I think if people think that unknown, they have reasons to think it might be smaller. I think that's really going to help. I mean, I'm just still even with this, I'm even long short to open the week, so I was a little more bullish than I have been. Um, but even so, I'm kind of hesitant to commit more. I think I'm going to watch it a little longer for the investing portfolio. I think I'm going to definitely swing more bullish in the trading portfolio because I didn't really rebalance over the weekend the way I did on the investing portfolio. But yeah, I think I think this is obviously a positive sign that we're seeing more resilience. But I just I don't know how much I believe we can sustain it until I see that.
And I mean, it seems completely logical to be like doubtful of any market rally, especially with the signals that Prospero has shown. And something that you guys talked about in the newsletter this weekend about the insider selling that we've seen in a lot of the Magnificent Seven stocks. Can you kind of break it down on what you were seeing and how you're viewing it? I think Nvidia was maybe like the least amount of insider selling, and then it kind of snowballed from
Yeah,
there.
yeah, I mean, the main reason I did that exercise is I saw a lot of reporting on the insider sales at Tesla, and I wanted to get a baseline. It's always good, to not to take anything you see with a grain of salt. And I really wanted to know really how like bad the insider selling on Tesla was relative to other companies. And I think the big data point that says, okay, maybe it is actually a big deal with Tesla. Um, Tesla had 68.5% of its trailing 1 year insider sales in the last 3 months. So we see an acceleration. The next highest is Meta at about 38.5. So substantially more than any of the other Mag 7 stocks in terms of accelerating insider sales in the last quarter. But then you also see that, none of the other ones are there. And NVIDIA switched from about 1.7 billion in insider sales the last 12 months to actually 200 million positive in the last 3 months. And that's by far the most in terms of the positive. I think I'm just going to pull up the data. I think Microsoft might have been a small net positive in the last 3 months. No, they were a small net negative. So after Nvidia's positive 201 million, the next best is Google at 0. So they're the only net positive. So that's why you like doing, that's why I always like doing analyses like this, because not only instead of saying like, oh, Tesla is selling a lot, like it's really important to know what they're selling relative to other Mag 7 companies. And they are selling an accelerating amount relative to other Mag 7 companies. Um, and then the other thing is, that I think that NVIDIA number is big. I'm still very worried about chips overall, but that makes me think like, is NVIDIA going to announce a competitive model? Like, what is making those in the face of like uncertainty with things like DeepSeek? What is making those insiders so confident that NVIDIA stock's going to go up? That's interesting to me.
Do you think Nvidia will ever release a product using their own chip technology? So, like a phone, a car, whatever, a robot, anything other than right now they're kind of like the backbone of the industry. But do you think they'll ever release like their own product from it?
I don't know. One thing I'm just wondering is I'm seeing like it was shared on X and I'm not seeing any X. I'm only seeing live viewers from YouTube. But
I
there's a
think
check mark to X.
I think our live viewer thing is just broken on this on StreamYard today. I don't think it's showing the right amount.
Yeah, okay. I wanted to see that. Sorry, let's get back to it. I just wanted to make sure.
Oh no, it's not. I don't think it's live on. It didn't go live on X
You
today for
see it
some
on
reason.
our X page. Oh, but
We
it's
do.
not live.
Here, I'm clicking on the StreamYard view on X link. Let's see if this
That's
works.
interesting. Yeah, it's just frozen. Hmm. I'm wondering if there's anything we should do. When I look at it, it's just frozen
Hmm.
on X.
Let me see if maybe I could remove and then re-add. Maybe it's worth a shot, right? If it's just frozen.
Oh no, I see myself live now there, kind of. I don't I don't know.
Is anybody watching on X that could comment right now and
No,
tell us
I
if you're
was
seeing
looking
this
on
live?
X and it's frozen on X. So normally you can see it streaming in the bot,
Maybe X
but
is under its second cyber attack in a week or so. They've had some, I feel
yeah,
like, issues recently.
yeah, not sure really what to do about that. Oh well, I don't think there's anything to do.
I'll try to
We
work
just
on it. I'll try to see if I can do anything to maybe unconnect and reconnect it or whatnot. But uh, what was the question? Oh, the question I asked you was like, do you think NVIDIA will ever create a product from their technology that they kind of, they let other companies right now build the products that is they are the backbone of. But do you think they'll ever like release their own phone, car, or anything else?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think it's hard, right? Because like they're very good, and we've talked about this. They're very good at their, low level code optimization on CUDAs. But that's kind of their big thing, optimizing, creating software that optimizes hardware, right? So one of the things we've been talking about is like these deep seek models, they could potentially optimize hardware to run those. But the problem with doing that is it kind of cuts into their core business a little bit because the faster a compute is total, the less compute people need. But there could be an argument that if that's the way it's going, that's what they need to do. But yeah, it's still hard
Sorry, I was tinkering with the
to know what
with
they're
the
going to do there.
Twitter. Um, yeah, I'm not sure what's going on with Twitter. Sorry, everyone. If
Steven,
you
are you there?
if you, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I was tinkering with the Twitter trying to get it to work. I'm not sure. It looks like it's
Oh, it's
frozen.
there. I can see X viewers now.
It's working? Okay. All
Yeah.
right. So we're back in business. The one other thing I wanted to ask you about this rally today and if it is legitimate or not in terms of the strength of it and if it will continue the longevity of it is this thing that we saw from Bravos Research where they studied a lot of the pullbacks in the past markets and they realized that home building stocks were actually the key to the market recovery. Their research showed that these stocks led the way if it was a true market recovery and it would sustain itself. Is that what you'll be looking at to see as this market tries to touch a 200-day moving average, get above it, or make a full recovery? Or is there anything else that you'll be looking at over the home building stocks?
I mean, I think using home builder stocks as like a bellwether is a good idea. Um, but I don't really like the way those appreciate is not like so, what we might do if we see a stronger home builder stock recovery is load up on more of our traditional tech growth names that we've been doing, especially as a percentage of the portfolio. Um, but no, those aren't the kind of stocks we like to invest in because um, the upside's limited, the downside's relatively limited, but when we see bull runs, that's when we like to load up on riskier picks. So that's kind of what we would do in that circumstance. But yeah, if we see a big turnaround in home builders, that will definitely make us more bullish.
So the longer you're, oh, I see a comment from Wolf saying X is live. By the way, hi, hello, Wolf. Thanks for being in the stream today. Um, I saw Boeing pop up into our short-term bull list last week, and soon enough, after it had looked good in the signals for a few days, an announcement was made that Boeing was awarded a $20 billion contract to develop F-47 next generation air defense. It's just crazy to see the signals highlighted like that, and then it pop up just a few days later. I think this is the second time now something like this has happened for Boeing. And we've covered stuff before where the longer you're around the signals, you begin to understand them more. Do you think there's something with Boeing and how it's so interconnected with the government and there's a lot of people, huge company, where these types of stories where there's a lot of people maybe involved and it coming together allows the signals to, sniff it out so much, so good, really?
Well, I think that these kind of leaks are more frequent than companies, right? Because if you think about it, and someone would like, we already see a lot of insider trading kind of stuff in the Senate and the House, right? So I think people on like the insider government information, I think feel a lot safer than people at the operating companies. We generally see less like bigger leaks like this. But if you think about it, some of our most interesting case studies are with Alibaba, where there was clearly some inside government information on especially like Alibaba's reorganization and financing, that stuff that like the government would know. And I think we see a similar thing here. I think on these government type contracts, I think people can be more loose lipped about them. And yeah, that's going to end up getting picked up in option sentiment.
So would that give you like extra confidence if you see a stock in the Prospero signals that could be linked to a government contract and you see it having super strong signals, but nothing's been announced?
I think I'm more comfortable with it on a stock level, right? Because maybe it is people at Boeing. But we've seen this now two distinct times that it absolutely is worth watching out for. And that's how I tend to think about it. If there is information on the stock level, like one of the things we saw in our AppLovin case study is that there's definitely moves up in net option sentiment before earnings, before major price moves as they relate to that. So that's something that we have our eye on now. But I do like to tie it to the stock, not necessarily like, oh, there might be government information. And yeah, we added Boeing last week when we saw it in momentum score in our trading portfolio. We didn't do it in our investing portfolio, but that's the difference in the conviction levels. Because now I'd be much more inclined to do it with Boeing next time in the high conviction portfolio because there's been more reason to see that conviction.
So we have the three semi stocks that we talk about the most. So year to date, I feel like I was just looking at the performances of these guys, and I think it'll be surprising. So Nvidia is down 10% year to date. AMD is now down 7% year to date, so beating Nvidia. And SMCI is up 33% year to date. Do you think that's an accurate ranking of how they've performed and how you view those companies as investments right now?
Well, there's more value to SMCI, and that's why that's the one we've been going to more than any of the other ones because I think relative to its revenue growth, things like that. Obviously, they had some legal troubles, but there can be value in having like in a company having legal troubles if you're confident they're going to get to the other side. And there was no real like there were issues with their accounting, but there was no like kind of big red flags attached to like the correction or anything like that. And I think that's why um there's value there. But yeah, I mean, it's the kind of thing that a year ago, if I saw this insider behavior and Nvidia like kind of ahead of the curve on that, I would be very likely to act on that. But now, Nvidia, I'm kind of curious. Nvidia kind of runs lower on upside often than some of the other ones. I kind of want to see where it is now. 51. Yeah. Very good technical flow, very good option sentiment. Um, but yeah, I think that says it right there. That 51 upside is like why, and like the uncertainty. Like I think it was closer to 60 a lot of the times last year. So yeah, I think people always are kind of worried about Nvidia because of, you know, how fast it's grown and kind of how that contributes to the way it's aggressively valued on kind of future numbers. So yeah, I think we will continue to go to SMCI. We didn't look at Broadcom. That's the other one. I'm kind of
That is true. Let me look at their performance.
I'm looking. They're down 16% year to date. That's interesting. So there might be some value there.
Nvidia, I mean, AMD shareholders have to be rejoicing today, right? I feel like we hit a peak of pessimism with that stock dropping under 100, and everybody starting to come for Lisa Su's job. Do you
Yeah.
think we've seen the bottom in AMD for like this maybe a short term bottom or
I
long
don't
term
know.
bottom?
Like with their lack of confidence on the market overall, but there could be some more value there, like we're saying. Um, and you got to wonder with Intel's new CEO getting such a positive market reaction, if the board of AMD, I'm sure they noticed that.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's hard to make a CEO switch. But I definitely think if there's overall economic problems, that's not going to help Lisa Su because of that Intel thing. I think they might say, "Shit, our stock's getting hammered. Maybe if we change the CEO, we could stem this downturn a little bit, create a news event around us." But you know, it's kind of always an issue of maybe you don't get a great CEO. I mean, obviously Intel did, but maybe part of the reason they did is Intel's expecting kind of more government subsidies, and that new CEO is saying like, oh, I see a lot of potential in government, in the government helping to fund our growth. Um, I'm not sure AMD is there, but the CEO titles are always a draw where you can get like an SVP or an up and coming EVP at like say Nvidia. I wouldn't be surprised. Like I don't know Nvidia's like kind of EVP, head of division, like that kind of thing. I don't know their roster well enough. But if I were AMD, I would be seeing like right now, I would be seeing who I could snag from Nvidia because that would definitely be a bull event.
So it seems like today the stocks that were performing the worst and had been hit the hardest are rallying the most. So AMD and Tesla up a lot today. Do you think the Trump stocks, the ones that we were covering that were strong at the end of last year, earlier this year, like Palantir, Coinbase, Tesla, do you think they will gain the most if the market recovers and be the leaders as if the market is able to climb back towards all-time highs?
Damn, I looked at I was like Tesla signals are starting to look pretty good in Prospero. Um and it's doing very well today. And some people were talking about it, but I just don't. My problem is, oh, it's down to 69 in option sentiment. So much for it looking good. Um, I just think we've talked about it. We've beaten it to death a little bit, but um, I don't know how anyone cannot be concerned by this like kind of Tesla boycott thing. It's very concerning to me.
What about Palantir? We haven't talked about them as much recently, and even though the stock trades at super high valuations, and it it has pulled back, maybe not as much as some would have anticipated with it trading at such high valuations and the market being so weak. And now it's back up
Damn,
to
how much is it up
approaching,
today? I might add it right now, actually.
it's up 5% today, just around 95 per share right now. So approaching that psychological level of 100. Um, let's see, year to date, still up 25%. And it just
It's in a
seems
bit
like
of a downslope right now. I'm going to keep my eye on it and grab it if it turns. It's looking great. I'm glad you brought it up. Really nice net option sentiment climb. Kind of a little volatile, but we're seeing consistent higher highs. 97 upside, 94 social right now. That's a stock that could move. We will keep our eye on it and
interesting.
probably add it soon. If you've seen, like I always like to do this, I'm looking at kind of like a 5-minute chart, and also the 10-minute. Let's look at 30. 30 looks a little better. But yeah, the MACD's kind of gone negative on it, but I'm definitely going to add this when it looks like it's bottomed out. I will do
So
my best not to constantly check it.
the Palantir
You're,
thesis seems like people expect the government efficiency push to lead the government to use Palantir and services like that to become more efficient. But we haven't really seen like anything announced yet. Do you think that will come at some point this year where I mean obviously Palantir is doing amazing growth on their own, but like that real like cherry on
I
top
mean, the
where
question is, do they need or want to have an announcement, right? Like with Thiel's very close ties to Vance and him probably putting in Vance and his close relationship with Trump, I would think you wouldn't really want to publicize that much. I think you'd like to have it show up in revenue and your revenue projections, things like that. But I don't think it's a good look for anyone to be like, oh, Palantir got like 10 new federal government contracts. I think that there's some things that you have to announce. I don't know the rules on that, but I don't think the DoD is obligated to announce every big, like, especially like intelligence gathering contract that they put together. But yeah, I think I'm definitely um, I'm definitely bullish on Palantir, especially after seeing um, that little thing. And it's looking maybe bottomed out right now, but we should keep going. I have I have a staring at candles
I
problem.
I am actually interested though on this. Like, you are obviously you feel bullish on it. Like, what are you waiting for? Why wouldn't you just make the move instantly? What are you looking at the chart and like why are you trying to wait a few minutes here or like what is your thought process behind that? Or versus
It
just
kind
like
of has
entering a
some red
position.
candles, and it looks to be doing a little like better. Like yeah, on like the 5-minute especially, I'm not loving the action. Um, but I'm feeling better about how it's turned around and like to spare myself all this time, I'm just gonna add it now.
But so it sounds like when you're adding a stock, you like to see it show a little strength, and even if you're going to enter at like a slightly higher like total share price, you want to see that strength versus trying to buy
Yeah.
weakness and like yeah, okay. All right, so we are adding Palantir Live, everyone. There's some value for you guys who tune into the live streams. By the way, thank you all for being here. Like the video if you love the topics we cover and enjoy these live streams. But what I want to get into now is we've had some early warning signs of possibly how this earnings season is going to go. Some negative reactions from stocks like FedEx and Nike, both dropping on their earnings. Are you concerned based off these earnings reactions of the upcoming earnings season that is going to kick off very soon? Or do you think these are more specific to these companies and not as big of an overall concern?
Yeah, I mean, I've been very concerned about consumer cyclical. And this definitely plays into that. I think even if the US market is ready to recover because it's more bullish on certain things. Like, I think all things being equal on price, I think there's some damage to American goods. Like, I think there's like a straight up boycott on American goods in Canada. I was on a live stream with a few Canadians last Friday, and they were talking about how like products in the supermarket have like Canadian flags on them, so people could like more easily distinguish. So I don't think that's just a price thing. I think some of that's like an anger at America thing. And I think that's like, Nike sells abroad for sure. So I think they're definitely like not only obviously taking a hit because of some consumer spending stuff, I think they're also obviously forecasting down. And I think that like, I think it's definitely a problem for consumer cyclical. I think that, we'll see. If I think about things like cloud computing, right? I'm not sure we've seen data that necessarily says, okay, Europe doesn't want to use American cloud and they now prefer Chinese cloud. I don't know anything about that. Like, I'm kind of thinking about how far this kind of like spending thing, maybe it's just B2C, maybe it's B2B. But I think, yeah, consumer cyclical stocks. I've definitely been thinking of having some more long term, like I've talked about doing SEC, the inverse consumer discretionary. I'm definitely thinking about that. I'm thinking about, but I'm also thinking about just having some long term shorts kind of on the value side. Um, that just like we assume are going to do bad over the longer term because of this kind of like international damage. That's kind of an interesting research project that I think I might end up looking at. Like, what companies have the most exports to countries that are affected by tariffs?
Well, that's actually a really fascinating point that you're highlighting because we've talked about like the international drama that could happen, but we've kind of talked about it with Tesla before, which is, directly linked with the government because of Musk. But it sounds like even companies that are just, there's companies like McDonald's, Nike, Starbucks, they're just like America. Like when you see them even abroad, they're signals of America. It sounds like you think the tensions from geopolitical, like global tensions, could affect those companies too overseas.
Yeah, I think there's two parts to it, right? There's there's the there's the amount of goods and the perception around that. And then there's also, I think, something to look at, which is just like every time there's tariffs announced, which stocks get take the biggest hit, right? I think that's like actually the research project that I'm definitely going to do, because we could do all this research on the macro side and who does the most business. But at the end of the day, no one's done more business than Wall Street firms. No one's done more research than that. So their perception around these tariffs, like I'd love to look at a few announcements and see which consumer cyclical stocks get hit the most. Now, we've also seen growth stocks get hit around tariffs. And I think part of that is like if there's worries about consumer confidence, there's less dollars that are going to be going into growth stocks. I think that's part of it. But yeah, I think that's definitely an interesting research project.
Yeah, so we'll probably get back to that topic later on, maybe Wednesday or next week. But I want to spin to now Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk. Both these stocks were up. The market's green, but they were up today. There was a story announced that there's expected results in Q2 of a weight loss pill. And as of right now, the only available GLP-1 is a weight loss shot. So I think investors are excited that if there's a pill version that is comparable to the shot, it could trigger a lot more adoption. Maybe people are more excited to have just take a pill versus getting a shot every week. Do you think that expanded market possibly for these companies is the next leg of growth that they need to continue
Yeah,
success?
that's huge. Like even like I think you can get prescription like more and more you can get prescriptions for them outside of things like diabetes. But like I do really wonder, I mean, there's plenty of people that just don't want to get shots. So I do think there's definitely a larger market. And actually, what I'm wondering a little now is what exactly is making all these advances in weight loss. Like, I wonder if there's like some AI component to it because, like, it's very strange. Like, for a while, there was like so many like weight loss, like a lot of the weight loss drugs before were like speed, right? So they've definitely figured out in some of this like desire monitoring stuff how to do that. And it's interesting. I wonder if anyone in the audience knows like what like on the science side is helping with those breakthroughs because they seem to be happening like a lot now. So I wonder what about like the current conditions, right? Because like if you think about like uh ED treatments, right? Like that's a very kind of like targeted problem solve. Um that was done with that pill. And that was a pretty long time ago that they figured that out. So if they could target that well on that specific problem, weight loss is, probably a bigger problem. I would say I haven't seen the exact numbers, but I'd say obesity generally is a pretty big problem that affects, I would say, more age ranges. um, and so, like, yeah, that's actually like a very interesting part because I'm thinking the more kind of formulations that they have, like anytime I think about it, I was like, a lot of people go like, oh, I probably could lose a little weight. But like the one reason I would actually never do the GLP-1s, especially, is that like that changes your brain so much. It totally affects your like relationship with everything. And some might say, well, yeah, I don't necessarily want my behavior being affected. Um, or yeah, some people would say I don't want like various aspects of my behavior being affected, but some people was like, yeah, like it's helped me, like I took it to lose weight and I don't necessarily like want to drink or the gambling. And there's a lot of things where it's just like, well, on the surface being led around like that a little less might be good. But my philosophy with that kind of thing is always just like, well, I don't necessarily want to, like, I'd rather like work on any issues that I have and like work on things like my self-control versus like depending on a medicine for your self-control that might be having like countless other effects on your brain. Um but yeah, that's a very like I think what I'm saying is if there was something that could like help with that without kind of like changing the personality so much, I think it would be more universally desired. So I think, yeah, like I think this is really good for those companies if they could have like various ways of targeting different markets. Because yeah, for some people they're just like, I don't care, I have no self-control, I'd love to take something that helps me with all of my self-control problems. But I assume that there's a decent number of people like me as well that are just like, yeah, if I could lose a little weight, have something make a little easier, like that would be great. But I don't want to change my whole personality for it. So I think there's definitely deeper monetization for those companies if they could have products that would fit for different archetypes, markets.
Hmm. I didn't even realize that. I thought they just dull your appetite. I didn't realize it dulls you across the board, it sounds like. And you were kind of
Yeah, I think it
highlighting.
affects some people differently, but like, yeah, I
uh
think you brought me that story at one point where like casinos were losing money because of the GLP-1s. Um, oh, thanks, Bob.
The Gila monster, a venomous lizard. Here, I could highlight it for those
They
people
have
that are
a lot
watching
of
on
like
Twitter.
interesting stuff. Um, he left us hanging. He's not
Yeah.
telling us the hormone. Um, That's so interesting. I feel like I want to read about that. Like, because they do like they definitely. I think they get all kinds of developments. I think one of the things that is helping our next gen stealth technology is like chameleons. Um, and I think there's like some antivirals. Well, I think we get a lot of stuff from mushrooms. It's always fascinating. Um, that, or I think maybe penicillin was from mushrooms. I don't know. It's very fascinating when we get that kind of stuff from nature. And um, so
There you go.
venomous lizard. So the venom, so it may be like anti venom that it's working with. I think it's worth researching more. Maybe we'll have a developing story. Thanks, Bob. I always like putting out questions like that and getting answers.
Well, while we're on the topic of science, we have a company filing for bankruptcy within that space. So 23andMe has filed for bankruptcy just after or just under 5 years of being a public company. We've covered, the weakness in the markets, maybe weakness in the economy. Do you expect that we could possibly see more bankruptcies going forward? And then also, 23andMe has to have a lot of like valuable data. What do you think happens to that when a company like this files for bankruptcy?
Well, that's what I was gonna say. I mean, it's probably sold, hopefully sold to another like genetics company, um, and not like the government, or maybe seized by the government. Maybe it's gonna end up on Elon Musk's computer, like private server, like all of our like what was it like Medicaid he already got, but he didn't get the Social Security. Who knows? Um, but yeah, I mean, as you were talking about the data, I kind of wonder. I was like, because I always forget if it's the Golden Gate or Golden State Killer, but basically, 23andMe provided data that helped that person be caught, and I think it's one of those things that's like can be a catch 22 because I think obviously that's a good story that they're helping solve crimes, but I think it made a lot of people wonder about like the privacy of their genetic information. Um, I've never done any of that for that reason. Um, just because I just don't I don't see as much of the value versus like the fact that there could be like a leak or whatever, and it's actually not like I don't plan on like murdering anyone or anything like that. But like actually what I don't really want to know is like I feel like it could be sold to like doctors or things like that, and like people like pushing certain like treatments or things like that. Yeah, I think you're right, Mario. I don't actually know what the CCC is. Um, but I mean, the NSA has everything. Like just to be perfectly clear. I don't know if it's I think they have like an open pipe to the internet. So I believe they have all like phone records, internet records. Oh yeah, they definitely have it too. I thought it was the CCP, not the
I
CCC.
was about to make a joke, better CCC than CCP, but I didn't realize CCC was the same. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what the third C is there. Because I always knew it as the Chinese Communist Party. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like I always, anytime someone's like, "Oh, I don't want like Google to have my information," I was like, "Well, the U.S. government has it, and I find Google to be less offensive than the U.S. government." So, but like at the same time, like the U.S. government doesn't have my genetic information now. I don't think maybe they have access to hospital records. Yeah, maybe it's dumb because I was like, yeah, I think they probably have access to hospital records, but I think hospital records have to be kept without your identity. Um, I think that's like a key part, and like when they go into foundations, like yeah, who knows? I don't think we really have privacy anymore. Yeah, maybe I should find out more about my genetics. I'm kind of like, yeah, as I talk about it more, um, I'm just like, yeah, maybe.
Well, I was curious about mine, so I did an Ancestry.com one a few years ago. Um, Hopefully, I'm not in a database somewhere in the Chinese Communist Party, but we'll see. It was interesting. I like looking at the history stuff, so but we'll see. We'll see. I'm sure soon enough we'll find out if these companies have been selling off that data. Mario commented the Patriot Act killed privacy. Do you know about the
Yes,
Patriot Act?
definitely. Yeah. Well, there's a great Nova documentary on this. But basically, like the people that built the NSA system, um, actually built it so you had to get, I think it's like a FISA warrant. Basically, if you wanted to check someone, you had to have like a FISA court get you to check a specific person. But the Patriot Act kind of changed that, where all of a sudden they wanted to be able to look through the system and find people in it, not have to get a warrant and then look at their information. And Enemy of the State is a great one. And we just lost Gene Hackman. So a good time to watch it. So yeah, it's a great, because that's like their old tech in that movie. So they're doing like way better. But yeah, basically the government ordered the NSA to like unlock the system. And basically like a bunch of people that built it said, no, this is not the purpose we built it for. We're not going to do it. And they basically fired all those people from the NSA, like a lot of the senior NSA engineers, and they just brought in new people that like looked through the code and figured out how to open it up. So yeah, that was a big change in the NSA that kind of like I'd say eliminated privacy. I think the good news is, I mean, we'll see how this holds going forward, but I think the good news is like if you're an American citizen, I don't think the US government is in a place or hasn't been in a place yet where they would, basically use, look through you to find a crime instead of because you've already, done something suspicious and then they're going to look more. But yeah, I think all of the, when you kind of look at things like 1984, and there's actually a really good Russian book called We, that's kind of their 1984. One of the things that is kind of always prevalent in those books is like a surveillance state. Everybody kind of forecasted the surveillance state as being part of the future. I mean, in Russia, it was a bit less of a leap, but still, I think that book was written in like we was written in like 1917, so it was kind of like forecasting some of the issues with authoritarianism. Well, actually, like that's when was we written? Okay, 1920, 1921. So I think that was after. So it was after the revolution. Um, oh, I don't know. Oh, I never knew this. We was actually part of the inspiration for George Orwell in 1984. But yeah, if you've read 1984 and you like it, I would definitely recommend reading We. It's a great book.
Well, this has been a real interesting side conversation. Thank you for your comments, Mario. I'm happy we went down that road. I want to switch over now to StubHub. They're a company that just filed to IPO, and we just covered Klarna last week, and we were asking, is this going to happen more often? Well, we got our answer there. So the ticker will be STUB Stub. Gross merchandise sales of 8.68 billion, up 27% year over year. But StubHub is still unprofitable. They reported a net loss of 2.8 million in 2024, so almost even. But how are you feeling about StubHub? And then also in a broader sense, investing in an IPO in a company that's not profitable yet. Do you think that's not a good
I think
idea?
there's
Or
less of an appetite for that than they have been, and they better hope it could go poorly for them if they don't. If the like kind of the perception around the economy doesn't change. But yeah, I mean, this is another business that I don't love, and this one's more personal than Klarna because I've never used Klarna. Um, but yeah, like StubHub, like the fact that they're not profitable, the way they like gouge people on these tickets, and then and there's like a straight up service fee. Like, I don't know if there's a service fee for the seller. I think there's a service fee for the seller and the buyer. So I think they're basically like through that getting like, I don't know, like a 30% markup on it. So it's just like, how are you not profitable if that's what you're doing? And I think a lot of the problem I have with StubHub, I don't really have a problem with, a service charge. attached to tickets. That's just like, that's the cost of doing business. Businesses have to get a margin. They're providing a service. Actually, my bigger issue with companies like StubHub is they create an environment for ticket hoarders. Like these people that are just buying tickets to sell them closer to the date at the markup. And maybe you could say that's on the hoarders. But I think it would be nicer if they did things like they don't care, but like curb the behavior from users. Like, and I think venues kind of limiting the number of tickets being sold. Like, I think a lot of the artists have a problem with that, right? Because they get the face value of the tickets to come into that. And then there's a whole other market that is selling those tickets at like 50, sometimes 100% markup. And that's what we've talked about before that like Spotify is killing the actual like usage side for these artists. And then you also have, your concerts. The only profitable part that you're doing is being absorbed. So I think Radiohead's going to tour a lot, and they've always had a big problem with it. So I'm interested to see how they do their tickets. There's some artists that have now started to do like more direct sales, and that might be an interesting idea for a company that artists choose. I think I might have just thought up a really good business where you actually do a higher service fee, but you don't mark up the face value of the tickets. You don't let people like sell above. So the artists know that all of the value is going to them. And maybe they even like, mark it up a little bit with them because they know there's going to be no gouging. I think that would be a really, interesting pitch to artists. But yeah, like I'm actually like shocked that like StubHub isn't profitable because like part of it is just like you're doing all this gouging and you still can't be profitable. What's going to make you profitable down the line? Like, do you need to get to some like ridiculous amount of scale and then you're going to like stop spending on marketing or whatever? Like, because I don't know where they're going. Well, Wolf, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think if people if the diehards want to log in and get those tickets, right? And you take, I don't know if Metallica's doing that where you can't mark them up, but like that's actually where I want the tickets to go, to the fans that like do it immediately. The problem is when they all sell out and it's like a bunch of ticket brokers buying them that are going to mark them up later on StubHub. That's what I don't like. So yeah, if those are going to like real fans and you get rid of the ability to sell tickets at a markup, that's what you really want. And I think that's what would be most beneficial to the artists.
The problem that you were describing, I think, is like the only thing why I thought NFTs could possibly be a thing, because artists could sell an NFT and get royalties on every resale. It seems like a real actual use case, and it's kind of what you're describing, how they get none of the secondary market sales. But the other thing I want to talk about is Live Nation is probably the biggest competitor, maybe, or StubHub is a competitor of Live Nation. Live Nation has been a strong stock on the market for a while now. Do you think StubHub could uh, create some weakness in Live Nation, or now that they have a real competitor in the public markets, do you think it'll be more of a battle there for who's going to be first in the industry?
Well, now that I know they're not profitable, like where I land on that is like, damn, maybe these ticket brokers are just in like a race with each other and they're just not. But like, I don't know. I don't see that many StubHub advertisements. I kind of want to like look through their financial statements when they come out and like, where's all that money going? Like, where is it getting eaten into? Like, because like it's understandable, like for something like Amazon, right? Amazon wasn't profitable for a while, but they have very, very tight margins, right? For StubHub, if you're just basically like a pure margin business that doesn't even have like a cost of goods that is selling these things, that just basically a broker selling them at a markup, it's like the equivalent of like I want to say like Robinhood not making a profit, but Robinhood has to use payment for order flow to get like a slight markup, right? Not like a 30% markup where they're getting it from the seller and the buyer. Like that's just crazy.
I was
Um,
thinking about Uber too. I think they were well known to be like running their business non-profitable for a while, right? With that
it's
battle
the same
for
kind of thing, right? Amazon, Uber, they were pricing very aggressively, um, so they could get users, right? StubHub, like aggressive pricing might be like a very low fee. And I think Ticketmaster, like I think they all have a very similar fee. They're kind of benchmarking to each other. Um, but yeah, I think that that's the only thing that doesn't make sense.
hmm Well, we have hit the hour mark, and it is time to do the model portfolio update. So, when I do a switch over, we'll see you on the other side.
It looks like all the camera fixes worked. We didn't have the cut to the Elgato. What was so
Yeah.
strange about that, it was almost exactly a half hour every time.
Was there a timer
So
or something?
I don't know. No,
Oh,
I mean
interesting.
it wasn't like an even timeline. It was like about a half hour that it cut out. But
hmm
we did this for close to an hour. I think it's fixed.
Yep, we're back in business now. All right, we'll see you on the other side. Everybody, stick here with me. We'll go through the signals that we're seeing in Prospero currently. The QQQ is still up over 2% on the day, so the gains are all hanging on in there. Good to see that we're not just selling the gains, and we're actually building on the gains. We're higher than the open, so good to see. Thank you everyone who commented in our chat today. It's always great when we can have a conversation with you guys who are watching. So thank you, everyone. All right, let me look at the SPY also. Let's see how they're doing there. Very similar to the QQQ, also above the open, now up about 1 2/3% on the day. Dow Jones up 1 1/3%, and the Russell up 2 1/3%. So all the markets still very green. Let's see if anything has changed in the SPY and the QQQ net option sentiment in Prospero. Interesting. I just opened the Prospero app, and AMD is at the top of the signals. AMD, then BABA, then Boeing, then Google, Meta, GameStop, Zoom, Apple, and Nvidia are on the short-term bull list today. But let's take a look at the SPY. Okay, I got the SPY up. Ooh, so the SPY net option sentiment is now at 19. 19 after being stuck at 0 seems like, well, we'll see what George thinks about it, but seems like a good move. A lot of people may be taking off their hedges this morning. And the QQQ is at 42, which I believe, regardless of where we've been at, 42 on its own, I believe is a bullish level. We'll double check with George. SPY at 19 isn't quite there yet, but I mean, coming from where it's been at, very, very good sign probably in the overall markets. See if Bitcoin has made any moves since we've been live. Bitcoin is now up over 2% on the day. I think when we checked last time, it was just under 88,000. Now it's just over 88,400 about. So Bitcoin also moving higher on the day. See if Tesla is still the leading Mag 7 stock, up over 9.5%. Oh, almost forgot. George added Palantir. Let's see how if that's done well since. I think it was at 95. So yeah, it's up like 0.5% since he added it. Not too shabby in just a little while. George, SPY net options sentiment is now at 19.
Wow.
QQQ at 42.
That is interesting. All right, getting everything all set up here.
I was wondering, is 42 a bullish level like in its own right? I know 19 isn't, but coming from 0 is good to see. But is 42 for the QQQ above the bull line that we've had?
Yeah, that's definitely bullish. And I should I'm definitely gonna. I didn't want to do it like in a rush in the morning. I wanted to see it play out, but I think I'm definitely gonna swing a little more long.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting everything all set up here. Almost ready. Okay, let's share. All right. 4.
Not surprising to see growth doing so well today with QQQ net option sentiment bullish. We will look for a small and mid-cap bull to balance our more large-cap portfolio more.
Oh, come on. All right. As we have been doing, we will get model portfolio booted up. Wow, pretty far down there. Been opening a lot of docs apparently. What's a good title for this?
Very aggressive move up to start the week. Are we convinced this can last? Not really. Sure, but we have to adapt to that potential.
See, we did add BA. I should have added it all around. Oh, lucky. Oh, I'm glad I got out of that lockheed position. All right, so that is 36. Let's see where we are on the bear side. $37. We just added 2 Palantir, so we have to remember that. Oh, yeah. What's going on? We'll hang on to it. I think that's labeled wrong in here. All right, we have to fix that. Oh, look at Meta up there on momentum score. BECN is there. Maybe I have to consider adding it. Let's see where we are at everything. All right, what are we doing? APLT. I did want a small cap, but that might be too small. I think maybe we'll add another Boeing. Why not? Ah, see, we already had Palantir for this. I think FICO is a good add. Do we have an open Goog or Google?
Let me look. We do.
Oh, I think we're going to do. All right, this could be our small cap. Then we have okay. I think I feel good about that. EGP. I've never seen that. Let's grab it. So that's 5 year. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, I feel good about this. Okay, done with that. That's good. Let's take a quick look at this. See if there's any. Alt is a little down. I don't think anything movable. Maybe I'll look at that. All right. I think we are good to go. Well, let me just look at UAA. I might make a move. Yeah, I'm going to stick with that. Okay. I think we are good to go.
All right. Let me just thank all of our viewers that always tune into our live streams. Thank you so much for being here. It'll be really interesting to track over the next couple of days how the net option sentiment for SPY and QQQ play out. So we'll be back live Wednesday, 3 p.m. But until then, have a great rest of your day, everyone, and see you guys there. Thank you, George. We'll see you back here Wednesday. Bye, everyone.